Hello, I'm Erlinda Patterson, and welcome. Essence Tabletalk, your television program. So happy that you're here with us today. We have an exciting guest, and you had better listen because it's going to be fun. I'm here with Kimberly. Hi, Kimberly.
Hello, hello.
Hi, and Anitra.
Hello.
Oh, and we have an exciting guest, ladies.
Yes, I'm
Yes, we
excited to
do.
Oh
start.
my
Yes.
God, I just can't wait for the event either
Yes.
that she's going to talk about. But
Yes.
mainly, she's going to speak about the history of, and I'm dying to learn some of that.
Yes.
I love
And-
history.
Yes. And it's so good that we're working together again.
Yes.
Thank
I'm
you.
glad to be here.
Thank you.
It's
Thank
great to be
you.
here.
And our guest today is a young lady by the name of Chris Levister. And she is the president, right,
Right.
of the Blue Jay Jazz Festival. And I should say the Blue Jay Jazz Foundation. And a mediation arbitration lawyer, award winning, oh, get this, ladies, award winning,
Wow.
all right?
Wow.
Excellent.
Broadcast print journalist.
Excellent.
She's an author, and that was for ABC News.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And we
Many
have a little
accolades.
story that we want to share in a little bit
Yes.
about that history and how she started.
Yes. Yes.
If that's okay with you, Chris?
That
Yes.
is
looking
absolutely
forward to
fine
hearing
with
it. Yes,
me.
definitely.
Thank you.
Chris Levister, a beautiful woman who has a lot to share about us and our history.
Yes.
So, there is just so much going on. She is with the Blue Jay Jazz Festival. That's a nonprofit, right?
Yes.
501c3.
Yes.
And they have an annual festival, a jazz festival, that really enriches lives for some of our people. So, with that, Kim, you have something you want to add to that?
No, I'm just looking forward to hearing your history about jazz. I just love jazz. It's relaxing, and I just like this. My dad was a jazz fan. I grew up listening to jazz, and so it was everywhere in my household and cars everywhere. So that's what I got used to.
Yes.
So I love jazz. So thank you very much. I'm going to have to go to one of these events in Arrowhead.
Yes. 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 And then myself, I love jazz as well. That's one of the places I like to go to the jazz festivals, the jazz clubs, the jazz lounges. I just really love it. So I'm glad to be here and hear what you have to say about the history of jazz.
Thank you.
I'm very much interested.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
And with that, let's go to Chris again. Chris, tell me a little bit about the history of jazz first, and then we'll go to the festival.
Okay.
Let's talk
That
about
sounds
that.
good. Well, first of all, Erlinda and ladies, thank you very much for this opportunity. I feel privileged to be able to be a messenger for jazz. A lot of folks, they
That's a
anticipate.
good way to put it.
Yeah.
I was thinking the same thing.
They just
Yeah,
anticipate
yeah.
that you're a top musician and so on. And what I have found is over the years that I have developed this love for this music because it's so complicated. And in many ways, Duke Ellington, when he said it's a gumbo. And so jazz it's gritty, it's messy, it's spicy,
A mixture.
Yes.
it has that complicated feel to it, and yet it's loving.
Yes.
It is,
Soothing.
yes, it's
Yes.
comforting
Relaxing.
and it's freeing.
Yes.
But with that comes this very difficult history of how jazz became America's original art form.
Wow.
And it comes with this difficult sense that it went through exploitation, discrimination, a lot of painful moments that derived from America's history of slavery,
Yes. Yes.
of slavery.
Yes.
Okay.
And
I just wouldn't equate jazz with slavery. You know, so I'm really intrigued. I'm really intrigued.
it's a, you know, oftentimes we try to overthink it. When you listen to Tchaikovsky or Beethoven, or you listen to some of the great classics or Frank Sinatra, we don't delve in and pick apart that doesn't sound right, that only should be this group, and so on. But jazz has undergone that and been able to survive as a result of what has happened. And jazz is America. It's who we were and who we are and who we can be.
Yes.
And that's the beauty. And so, you know, its roots, it sprung up from the fields of the South. And there were enslaved
So are you
people.
saying that it was started in the slave era? Is that what you're saying?
Well, it started in the slave era not as a structure.
Okay.
Okay, it wasn't called jazz.
okay.
It was called field hollering.
Yes.
And
Field hollering.
Field
Felt
hollering.
hollering.
And
Yes,
that is
yes.
when enslaved people, they worked in the back breaking heat, and they would go, and so then they begin to piece those together, and they became spirituals, hymns, and it was all religious based.
There was a meaning
so-
for all of those little.
Yes, yes. And so they, then in the 1800s in New Orleans, those pieces came together, and people started saying, we've got something here. But it was unlike anything anyone else had heard of. And so they would take those moans and groans and they'd put them in, but it wasn't like classical music. It wasn't where you would have a series of charts and you had to make sure that if you messed up something on Beethoven, you had a problem. So therein lied that syncopated sense of, here's where we are, and let's put this together. And so therein lies improvisation. Improvisation is doing it on the spot, making it up as you go along. And that's what the early pioneers of jazz, and that was the Duke Ellingtons and the, you know,
Fitzgerald.
all of
Yes,
your folk who just said, you know, we don't want a book.
Right.
We don't even have to rehearse. And so that's the essence of where jazz started. And then, you know, where we get to now outside of New Orleans and where we want to go with that.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
That's
I love
amazing.
It is.
So
amazing.
it actually became known as a national treasure. Is that
Yes,
right?
yes. In 1987, the United States Congress declared jazz as a national treasure.
Wow.
And, you know, most people don't know this because they sit and they listen. They've got a cool drink and, you know, some wine, or they're sitting in a nice club with their significant other or otherwise. And they don't realize that this is a true legislative law that says jazz
Wow.
is a national
You know, this is the
treasure.
first I've heard of
Yeah,
it.
a
Yeah.
national treasure.
Thank you for this
1987.
educational program.
And they said that it's an indigenous form of music and an art form. It is the only music Americans invented.
Wow.
You see, and that's, if you go back, it's the only one that we, you know, if you look at classical, it came from Europe. If you look at some of your Latin, it came from South America
Right.
and Mexico and so on. But it was the only original one, and that got its roots in New Orleans.
Yes.
And so you had everything from funeral marches to, you know, people, you know, doing things up and down the street with marching bands and so on. And so that's how the Declaration came to be. And so it's in place now.
Very good. So
Very
what is
good.
controversial about jazz?
Well, that's a very good question.
Or is there something controversial?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Tell
Oh
me,
my
tell me. I
gosh.
want to know.
Really?
Jazz at the time, and you've probably seen some video, and if you look at some of the holidays where you look at when in the old days when black people went to the bars, and it was all segregated. So you had Jim Crow, and you had Reconstruction, you had all the pre-civil rights issues involving former enslaved people, and so jazz was considered unpredictable,
Okay.
undisciplined, and to many people it was associated with unconventional styles of living, dancing, excessive drinking, sexual freedom, and all of these
It
things
almost
had
sounds to
yeah,
me like they're talking about a people.
yeah.
Like the Mardi Gras.
Yeah,
Yes,
exactly.
yes,
But
yes.
but you know, if you go
Yes.
to the diaspora of Africa, what do? They dance,
Yes,
and
yes.
they
Very
they do the
colorful.
Yes,
very
very
colorful.
colorful.
You
Yes.
have all of these wonderful
Yes.
explosive events, and so the controversy was that was not the sensibilities that we needed to have in America. It was people just flopping all around and all of that. And we were glad to be free. And so
Yes.
it took on, my gosh, jazz is under the table kind of thing. And so that was the controversy.
Okay. So why do people dislike jazz? Why would you say that?
Well, if you fast forward to today, we don't know. But I can surmise that when you come up with something that is different, that you can't put in your hands and say, this is how it should be. It's charted this way. The melodies and harmonies are supposed to be this way or that way. Then people get nervous.
Yes,
They go, "You're
yes.
changing the script," and so what happened was the dislike was from the contemporary music industry.
Is that from the lack of understanding? of
Well,
what's going on?
yes and no. It was simply, don't come in here messing up music.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay? And so
Right.
basically
Right.
they said you need to deal with the B flats and the F sharps and the harmonies and melodies. That's structured music. But here we were bringing in this, let's just get down and not worry about
Free
the
spirit.
structure, free spirited.
Colorful.
And so it was perceived of as improvisation
Right.
was goofing up things. And here we are,
Right.
trying to find our way in this country by goofing up things.
Right.
And so that was the reason why people developed their own prejudice against it. I will tell that it's been called all sorts of things, from race music to black music to whatever, but it's endured. And so
Yes,
that's the joy, because interestingly enough, this music now, the flag is carried not just by us, by all Americans. though.
Yes,
So-
yes, definitely.
That's true.
Definitely.
That's true.
That's true.
It seems like it's a struggle for individuals to understand the music itself. It's not like, well, let's go James Brown. I feel good, we were loud, we were, that was a special gift that he had, a special type of music that he had.
Yes, yes,
But it wasn't accepted long ago.
yes.
That's correct.
If he had come out 1800s,
Oh, yeah.
he'd be gone.
That wouldn't happen.
It wouldn't have happened, So today, it seems like it's difficult for people to understand what do they call it? You have class because you listen to jazz.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
I've heard that.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
True.
You know,
True.
Yeah.
and people seem to want to be classy, so for some reason they turn to jazz. But are they really turning to jazz because they really truly love it?
Yeah.
Well, I think that's an interesting question because in my work, and we'll get into the festival,
Yes.
in my work, I have found that if you have knowledge and you deal with it through decency, 95% of the scholarship kids that we give help to in Lake Arrowhead do not look like me.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, they're not brown
Okay.
or black, but I love them because
course.
I
Yes,
look at them
yes.
pick up a clarinet,
Absolutely.
and you can see the expression on their face
Yes.
of saying, wow, the sound coming out of that instrument. And
Yes.
that's what matters to me.
Yes.
And that's what
Yes.
matters to our
Yes.
foundation
Yes.
is if we can
Yes.
get all of these kids to see the beauty of music,
Yes.
then jazz wins.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Jazz
Yes,
wins.
definitely.
I love
And
it.
now the high school
Yes.
has a jazz band.
That's
And
nice.
these kids are loving it. And it's not, they don't have to play Duke Ellington. I tell them, I don't want to hear the A Train anymore. I'm tired of it. But we say to them, play everything.
Yes. Yes.
Play it all. So that's the point of making sure that
Nice.
we stay focused on what this is all about.
Yes.
There was
Yes.
a documentary broadcast on PBS with Ken Burns. I believe it's something very interesting.
Yes. Well, Ken Burns, who he has exquisite talent. He does America's. He is sort of a storyteller about America. He's done baseball.
Yes.
He's done Muhammad Ali. He's done this piece on jazz. He's done many things that help us, like our national parks and so on. And bless his heart, these things are broadcast on PBS. And I just delight in knowing that there's someone out there who is not looking at, well, jazz is good or he had probably about 15 to 20 to include Wynton Marsalis and some of the greats, Louis Armstrong and all these people. They had interviews from many years ago, and so he did a 10-piece documentary, and it was called Jazz Is. And I want to read just a snippet from an excerpt from something that was part of the narration.
Okay.
And jazz is America's music, born out of a million American negotiations between having and not having, happy and sad, country and city, between black and white, men and women, between old Africa and old Europe. That could have only happened in an entirely new world. It's an improvisational art making itself up as it goes along, just like the country that gave it its birth. It rewards individual expression but demands selfless collaboration. It is forever changing, but almost always is rooted in the blues.
Beautiful.
It has a rich tradition and its own rules, but it is brand new every night. It has enjoyed huge popularity and survived hard times, but it has always reflected Americans, all Americans at their best. And jazz, the drummer Art Blakely liked to say, washes away the dust of everyday life, but it always swings.
Right. I love
Beautiful,
that.
beautiful,
Thank you.
beautiful.
Thank you.
Ken Barnes.
Thank you. Yes.
Ken Burns.
That's
yes.
beautiful.
Ken
Yeah.
Burns.
That
Yes.
is beautiful.
Absolutely beautiful.
Yeah. So
Yes.
there is a history
Yes.
beautiful history, and some of it I didn't even really know.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And I'm so glad that the viewers
Yes.
at home have an opportunity right now
Yes,
to listen to that history.
definitely.
And the next thing we're going to talk about is the Blue Jay Jazz Festival.
Yes.
Yes.
And I want you to
Nice.
share that information
Yes.
because those people that heard the history today may be intrigued and want to go to this
Yes.
event.
Definitely.
Yes, I feel.
Well, I'm excited. I am the president of the Blue Jay Jazz Foundation, and we are a 501c3 nonprofit.
Okay.
And the thing that people are overwhelmed with is that we're all volunteers. Nobody gets any money. It drives me. I mean, there is to put on this kind of thing
Yes.
is a major, major, major undertaking. And then with me having a full-time job and so on, but it comes from here.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And
Yes,
what we do is we put on a festival every August, and it's 3 consecutive days. And we started out in a very humble way. In the 1990s, there was a restaurant in Lake Arrowhead. It was called the Royal Oak, and it was just a nice little country, lots of nice food and so on, but nothing special. And so, but the owner loved jazz. And so when he closed at night, he said, "Hey, you guys want to take some chairs out in the parking lot and let's keep going."
Nice.
That's
Oh,
right.
And
yes.
so
Let's
at
keep
11
going,
o'clock
keep
or
on
midnight,
going.
we were like,
Continue.
sitting there. And
Yes,
so
uh-huh.
remember those moanings and that
Yes.
hollering and carrying on. And so we would, and this was not, these weren't
Right.
African Americans because these were people who just loved jazz,
Just
and
love
we just got
jazz,
out there.
uh-huh.
And so we would and one thing turned into another. And so the local businesses and members of the civic community, my husband, Ernie Levister, who is on the board now, we have a formal board, and we all decided that we just do something in the form of a festival. So then there was the making of the Arrowhead Arts Association. That was comprised of these business folk, and I think Rotary was involved, and that was the 90s. Well, fast forward, they had a beautiful series of concerts, and they were, they moved out of that parking lot, and we moved, and talk about, well, people today call it a dump, but I call it a beautiful, naturally carved. I mean, things were falling we were on the roof, and of Rite Aid. We're on the top of Rite Aid, and we shook it so hard that I recall there was a band. We were.
I know you all
We
were
were
going.
doing it, and so the people ran upstairs from Rite Aid and said, "Hey, you're knocking all the stuff off the shelves."
Goodness.
And so the band, this happened to be a Zydeco band.
Okay.
And so Lisa Haley was her name. And Lisa Haley said, "Let the good times roll and let the shelves move on." And it was hilarious. But we were having so much fun, and in that open air in the forest, so you could that whole syncopation, everything. It was
Yes,
beautiful.
yes,
And so
yes.
we stayed up there for several years, and then Arrowhead Arts decided to go into, they were part of, or their history was classical music. They did an excellent job of promoting classics by the lake, and so people who loved classical music had that. But then they decided that they wanted to do not only that, but also go into contemporary music. And that did not include jazz. And so we had to go dark there for a while. And then one day we were all kind of sitting around some of the old folks that had been part of the jazz festival that time. We said, you know, if Monterey can do it, if
That's right.
Montrose can do it, if
Yes.
Temecula and all these people can have
Yeah.
jazz festivals, why can't
Yes.
we have one?
Exactly.
And it was difficult because we were trying to do something, quote, different.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
We were doing something
Scares
different.
people, doesn't
It
Yes.
scares people.
Yes.
And so we got a lot of pushback, but I must say that today I am so proud of our community because we have a good a working relationship with the Arrowhead Arts, with others who promote music because we give scholarships to all the kids that that qualify. And this year we're doing 10 scholarships, and these kids are going places. We have one now that just he became a member of the U.S. Marine Corps band, and only about 2 to 3% of people get in those. And we have a young man who is from, he is Argentinian, and he and his father are now in Buenos Aires, and he's playing gigs, and he's 17, 18 years old.
Nice.
So we gave him his first scholarship, and so one of the things that we do, our mission, is really to raise awareness of music
Yes.
and jazz in particular.
Yes.
We want children to be involved in playing music, and so we established an instrument bank, and so the kids who cannot afford to rent or buy,
That's great.
the parents often are saddled with other obligations, and so we have a big bank. We you have anybody who has an instrument in their attic or under the bed that the kids don't use
Pull it
anymore,
out, pull it
we'll
out.
take it.
Yeah.
And we have them refurbished, and so the kids call us up and say, Miss Levister, can I get a saxophone? You know, that kind of thing. And so, but many of these kids, these students, in some way, and I say this unapologetically but with reverence, they've never dealt with someone who looks like me. But what happens when we say to them, I want you to be your best.
Yes.
I want
Yes.
you
Yes.
to do everything
Yes.
that you can think of in your dream.
Yes.
And that's what we do.
So you empower their
That's it.
lives.
Yes.
Absolutely.
We empower
in
their
more
lives.
ways than one.
Yes.
You supply
definitely.
the instrument. If the instrument needs repair, you guys help them with that. You give scholarships.
Summer camps.
Summer
and,
camp.
we provide them with money to do competitions. They go down to Knott's Berry Farm and they compete. But it's the high school. And so we are very, very directed at what we do with
So
them.
if
That's good.
someone wants to attend this event, when is the event anyway?
It is August the 22nd with Pancho Sanchez,
Okay.
and it's his Latin
Pancho
jazz
Sanchez,
band.
huh?
Yes,
All right.
his Latin jazz band. And Pancho is a good friend of ours. We recognized him back in 2014,
Oh,
and he comes. And here's his thing: I called his representative and I said, Pancho, we'd like for you to come back this year. And he said, yeah, okay, I'll come back. He said, but I'm going to invite these people. We're going to shake and shimmy, and we're going to
okay.
have a good time.
that
And
sounds
he
good.
and that's the partiers. I mean, the people, because you come, it's outside right on the lake. It's
nice.
very elegant. We have tablecloths, and sometimes you can go there and you can see somebody who has $50 worth of olives, but yet it doesn't have. It's kind of, you know how you play house, and so you have these people who come in and they bring all this stuff, and they got their hats and all that other stuff on. We did Mardi Gras last year, and it was so much fun.
Oh, yes.
And then that Friday, the 23rd, is Lee Ritenour, and I am extremely proud to have someone of this caliber, because Lee Ritenour is one of the world's preeminent guitarists. He is on the same level as like a Wes Montgomery, who he and Wes were dear friends prior to Wes's passing. And he has played with Patrice Rushen, who has played at our festival. We've had a number of high-end, very high-end individuals. And so what I found, people said, how in the world can you get Lee Ritenour? And I said, his fees can be exorbitant, obviously, because he's at the top of the game. But I said, if I can ask and I can say, this is what we do, and he says yes.
All
Oh,
right.
that's nice.
What?
Wonderful.
You have that connection.
Yes.
You have that
that's
connection.
marvelous.
Yes.
So if people want to get tickets, where do they go? How
To
do
our
they get-
website.
Your
And
website.
it's pretty easy. Think of the bird, bluejayjazz.org.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah,
Blue
yeah,
Jay
bluejayjazz.org.
It'll be on the
That sounds
screen as
good.
well.
Yes,
It will
yes.
definitely be on the screen.
Blue Jay
So,
Jazz.
you have so many talents. I mean, you are an amazing woman.
Thank you.
Yes,
You
yes.
truly are. You're
Yes.
an arbitration lawyer.
Yes.
You were the first African American woman
Yes.
newscaster on ABC.
Right. Yes.
Well, actually, I'm very proud of it, but I look back and I look at how media has changed so much.
Of course.
And in some ways, it's sad because we didn't have to the 24-hour news cycle. We didn't have to
No.
produce something all the time.
TV went off at
And-
12.
Yeah, and also when we went out and we did a story, we had to make sure that everything was vetted. I mean, if you walked into a producer and you thought the person said that, it didn't go on the air. And we had some killer
to
stuff.
know.
We did investigative journalism. And so what happened was I graduated from Indiana University and I somehow stumbled into they liked my voice, and so they said, you answered the phone for representing the radio station. They just had this crude radio station. He said, well, we like you. And part of that is because I grew up in Indiana, so I don't have too much of a dialect. And so I didn't, as I would think, piss off people with my voice or with that. And so I would just you say you're listening to, here's the weather, and it was just students.
Right.
And so someone came to me and said, you have a future in broadcast. And I said, really? And I was planning to be a secretary. Because that was my high school. In those days, you got directed to be,
Right.
either go into restaurant or go to, and most of the people in Indiana went up to the auto industry, which was nearby Detroit, and you could drive there, and and just commute there, and you could get a home and a car. Unlike today, you could buy a house and so on. So it was a really good career for people. But so this individual came to me and he said, I'm going to give you the telephone number of someone that I want you to contact. And I looked at it and I'm like, okay, fine. And gosh, I'm a kid and I'm naive. And I said, well, what am I going to do? And law was not in my rearview mirror. And so I contacted this individual in Norfolk, Virginia. Now, the last thing I could think of is how would I get there? And so I took a bus and I rode probably 2 or 3 days, a Greyhound bus, and I rode to Norfolk. And I got there and it was this, the South. But it was delightful. I mean, it wasn't.
But it's still the South.
But it was still the South, and it was very different in terms of how I was treated and how people viewed me. Where are you going, and that kind of thing. And so I don't know. I think having grown up in Indiana in the Midwest, we were so close to Chicago and Detroit. I had white friends and at that time we did not have the immigration issues, so you did not have the demographics of the Latin population like we do to have today. And so I just I used to do things, and we had 4-H club, and I had a blooming cow and a bunch of other stuff. And so he said, you call this guy, and I did. And so his name was Paul, and I said, my name is Chris, and at that time I wasn't married. And he says, well, where are you? And I said, well, I'm in Indiana, and he says, well, we're forming an all women's radio station, all women. And he said, I want you, he said, I like your voice over the phone. And he said, I want you to come down and do an audition. I said, I'm in Indiana. I mean, well, how do you expect, are you going to pay my way? Well, they didn't. He said, no. He said, if you can get down here, he said, I'll audition you and we'll see. So I get there, and of course, there are no cell phones. And I'm dating myself. And so I get there and I'm in a phone booth. Hello, this is so-and-so. And he says, well, when can you come? And so I was able to get over there in timely fashion. And I walked in and I thought he was going to just flip. He said, well, and I said, before you say anything, I said, let's just sit down and talk and you find out what I can do. And I had the fortitude. I had, God gave me an opportunity and I just took it. And I felt that he couldn't turn me down. He knew I'd come a long way. But it was the South, and he was like, I can't be putting on the air. This was radio, and you couldn't even see me. So anyway, I worked there, and it was an easy listening. It was, Andre Castellanos and some Frank Sinatra and stuff. And so I was there, and I loved working nights. And all I did, the only thing we would say is, you've been listening to so-and-so, and the weather is this and that. So you only got a little bit of stuff. So you couldn't yak like a lot of these things now. And so I started playing some jazz all night long, and I developed an audience, and that audience loved that I would play. Well, they were licensed. The radio station was licensed for something other than jazz. So I played that jazz, and he called me up in the middle of the night, and he said, you're fired.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
For playing jazz.
For playing jazz. Well, I broke the rules. Okay. You can't do that. You can't. Yeah, that's like going to Macy's and just selling something from Walmart or whatever. And so, and not that there's bad there, it's just that that's not their policy or their model. And so anyway, I was stunned. But then one day I looked out the window and I thought, darn, there's a TV station next door, because they were connected, but they weren't owned by and it was WVEC television. And I walked in and the guy looked at me, what can we do for you? Well, I'd like a job. And he just said, well, what can you do? Nothing. And I mean, I told him that I had, because he'd heard me on WNOR. And so he said, well, we don't have anything on air for you. He says, how strong are you? Well, I'm short and curvy and but I was fit. And so he said, I'm going to give you a job as a camera operator. So one of those big, but you remember the old ones that had the great big heads.
Back in the old days.
In the old days, I pushed that's how I got in. And I pushed that thing, and I would go home at night, and I would sit in the tub with Epsom salt. I would sit in the tub. And so one day, there was a plane crash. Because Hampton Roads is near, all your Army bases and naval bases, all your military installations in the United States have some presence there in Hampton Roads. And so there was a crash, and unfortunately there was some fatality. And my producer, the producer who had me running the cameras, he said, it's your chance.
Get on there.
Get on there. And I was absolutely terrified. And I went out and I didn't know, they just said, take some notes as much as you can. And, and then we didn't have video or anything. It was none of this. You stood there and you did film. And you stood there and says, I'm standing in front of this ship and I'm about ready to drown, that kind of thing. And so, but I did it. And I don't even know how I came up with explaining that, I fed my stuff to ABC. But it was very interesting that someone noted that I was terrified and could not even think of what to do, and it was Ed Bradley from CBS News.
Yes.
And he came over and he said, "You look scared." And I said, "I am." Yes, I am. And he helped me. He helped me.
Good.
And he guided me, and we stayed in touch for years. And then that's how I was able to get to, I went on the air, I became a reporter, and I stayed on as a reporter for about 8 years, and then I went up to the network, and I did reporting and a lot of was more feature and some investigative type things, and then I said, I would like to do something different, and I decided to go to law school at night, and I was able to do that at William and Mary, and we one thing led to another, and I just decided that I wanted to continue to write. And so I met my husband, and then we moved out here to California. But I still wanted to come out and be a reporter. And California was a different animal.
Different beast.
Yeah, Britney Spears and and Oprah and all that. It was like, oh, I can't do this. Is a little different.
Right.
And so I decided to continue writing, and I wrote for the Black Voice News of the Inland Empire. Enjoyed that. Did some investigative reporting, and I have some stuff that's still online, which is groundbreaking. And so I did that, and then but I'm a person that feels a great deal of gratitude, and that's why I think that I do well with the Blue Jay Jazz.
And you also wrote a book.
Yes.
Tell me, what's the title of the book?
Yes, I have. I've always liked writing poems, and I put my feelings in. Here's what happens when you put something. It's kind of like improvisation, because poetry is not. Mary had a little. It's whatever is flowing through your head, and you put that in. And so my good friend, Dr. Jane McMillan, she is a radiologist that I've known for a while, and she lived in she has a place in Lake Arrowhead, but she lives in Orange County. And so she said, I paint, and so what happens is that these are her illustrations, and I said, I'll put together some poems, and I'll put these poems together, and you can illustrate. But look at the beauty of what she was able to do. And I'm going to take just a moment. I'm going to read this real quick.
What is the title of the book?
It's called Against a Canvas Sky.
Okay.
Yeah. But just, you'll have to listen to this. Against a canvas sky, there are faces, confident or afraid, wrinkled or yet uninformed, wise and experienced, or bland and empty and hiding pain. Joyous faces living each moment, or desperate faces passing the time. Beyond the color and forms are the faces and sketches yet unfinished. Tragedy and triumph, fighting for mastery. To remain the same, the faces are proud of power or abused by defeat. They touch the moon. They are pages that mirror our faces, where we live and laugh and happily drink and rejoice in us, in what we are and what we are not, and what we hope to bring. We are fragile and strong and hungry, but we're always balancing and healing in our own private splendor.
It's lovely.
I love it.
Lovely.
Yeah.
But you are a woman with many hats.
Yes.
Many lovely hats. We're a very talented young lady.
Thank you.
And we're proud to have you here on the program
Yes,
today.
definitely. Thank you so much.
We came here to chat about the Jazz Festival and the history of, but we've learned so much about you.
Yes,
So many
definitely.
precious things.
Yes.
Thank you. Well, it is such a pleasure to be able to do this, because I look around here and I see women. I also see women of color, and I didn't see that. I was alone when I started in the 70s. I was alone, and I looked around, and when I went for an interview, but you know something that saved me? Decency and civilized behavior, because I felt no matter who I was interviewing, I treated them with respect.
Absolutely.
I asked hard questions, but they didn't mess with me. And a lot of people say, oh, did you feel that you had to do couch casting and all that? When I walked in, I said, my name is Chris Levister, and that's how, back in the day, that wasn't my name, but I when I walked in, I just commanded a certain degree of respect. And now I'm not saying that there were not issues and problems with people.
Of course there were.
There was harassment and so on. But somehow I felt shielded, but I also learned very early how to take care of myself.
Very good.
And that I didn't walk into what, if you walk into a situation, sometimes you get what you pray for. So I'm very careful about that. And I feel that I've had a good life, that I've been able to help people. I've been able to see
And you continue
people.
to do that
Yes.
even today.
Yes.
So give us again the date of the Jazz Festival.
It is, and I failed to tell you who is on Saturday.
Oh,
and
please.
that is, this is an expert pianist named John Prue. And he spells his name Proulx, but it's pronounced Prue. And he is a classically trained, all of our headliners are Grammy Award winners this year.
Wow.
So we're called Grammy Whammy. And but he is this wonderful pianist, very cool and collected and so on, classical pianist. And then he has someone called Valerie Geeson, who is a former Ray Charles Raylette.
Oh,
She is
great.
straight out of church. She is fantastic. She's
blessed.
classically, she's like a Whitney Houston, where she's got this beautiful set of chops. And so that is, again, our festival is August the 22nd. 23rd and 24th, and it's all lakeside. And the tickets, people buy tables and so on. We try to keep our ticket prices where they are affordable. And so if you go to bluejayjazz.org, you can see what we do. Not only that, but you can also get tickets to the festival. And I am nothing more than a phone call away. I answer a lot of questions, but we do have people who can handle things. Like some people call and they'll want to know, because it gets cold. And so if you come up with the sleeveless, you're in trouble.
You're in trouble.
Yeah.
So we'll make sure.
That's good to know. Yeah, that's definitely good to know.
Yeah.
Just bring a shawl.
Yes,
You can still look.
Yes. Bring a shawl.
That kind
Yeah,
of
you
thing.
can.
Yeah,
Yeah, you
and
can.
a sun hat is nice. But you can bring your own food and your own beverages to include alcohol.
Oh,
That
nice.
sounds good.
Yeah.
You want to bring
That's
some, some kind of your favorite beverage, you can do that.
Yeah.
And a lot of people come up and they spend the night, but we don't have too many hotels up there.
I saw that. I was looking at the websites too. But it's been a pleasure to have you with us today.
It's been my pleasure.
And
thank you so much.
there's so much fun up the hill.
Right.
Yes,
Right.
yes.
You
Yes,
didn't know
yes.
that, did you?
No, I
Kim?
did not.
Yeah. Now
I
we've
did
just
not
got to
know
get
that.
people comfortable with driving that mountain,
Yes.
because
Oh,
oftentimes
yes.
people come up and they go like,
Yes.
"Oh, I was laying in the back seat," because it's
Yes,
curvy.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So get ready.
But just
Yes.
go be
But it's-
patient
That's
and
true.
just,
Take your time. Right.
enjoy
Take your
yourself. Go out
Yes,
there
yes.
and help sponsor
Yeah.
someone.
The scholarship
here.
kids will be playing on Thursday,
Uh-huh.
and we
Okay.
get them out there, and they are terrified.
Excuse
But I always say, you can do it, you can do it, you can do it.
Yes, you
And
can.
they get up and they do. And so we're really proud of them, and we're just proud of our community, and I am proud of jazz.
Well, busy lady, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's been a blessing to have you here today.
Yes.
So many different gifts that this lady has.
Yes, lots of gifts.
So many gifts.
Definitely.
And
I love the
I'm-
history. Thank you for the
Yes.
history lesson.
Oh, yes,
Thank
yes,
you.
yes.
I really
Pass it
appreciate
on.
that.
Pass
Yes,
it on.
absolutely.
Appreciate
absolutely.
that.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
I'm going to go,
I know.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
and I'm going to think about that.
Yes, me
Yes.
too. Me too.
Those
Yeah.
rituals, and we
What
do
did it
things,
mean?
Yes,
and you know,
exactly.
the hip hop and rock and all of them have those roots, and if
Mhm.
you go
Absolutely,
back
yes,
to
yes,
them,
yes.
yeah,
It's
you go back
true.
and you know, like
These young people need to know that.
Right.
It came from
right.
somewhere.
Yes, yes.
All right, Anitra, anything you want to add to that?
I just want to say you're the definition of resiliency,
thank you.
motivation, inspiration. And I just really thank you for all that you have done and all that you do,
Thank you so much.
especially
Yes.
working with the young, the young people.
Well,
That's wonderful.
I'll tell you that it's truly a blessing to sit
Great.
in the midst of people who want knowledge
Yes.
and
Absolutely.
are promoting knowledge, and,
Yes.
and then we can give our young people opportunities
Yes.
because you know if they dream. But if they don't
Yes.
have a foundation like what you're
Yes.
doing,
Yes.
then their dreams are simply just that, dreams.
Yes.
There
yes,
could be
definitely.
a parent right now watching and seeing this and realizing that her child, too,
Yes.
can be sitting in that chair as you are,
Yes,
Christian.
definitely.
Yes.
Definitely.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so
And
much.
encourage
Thank
them.
you. It's such
And
a
Kimberly?
pleasure.
Thank you.
It's been fun.
It's been fun. It's
Okay.
wonderful. Wonderful day.
Anything you want to add?
No, just thank you for everyone.
Okay. Well,
Thank
you
for
know,
being
we
here.
went over our minutes, but you know what? It was very well
It was worth it. It was worth it.
Oh,
It was
and
worth
you
it.
know, our editor's going to have a good heyday time trying to
Edit
I'm
all
not
of
going to
this
mention
stuff.
her name, but you know, or their name, but
figure
they're
it- they'll
wonderful.
figure it
They'll
out.
figure
They'll
it
figure
out
it out.
for us.
Appreciate
Yes.
it.
There's so much
It's been
good
wonderful
information.
working with a beautiful
Just very
person
good.
like yourself.
Yes.
So I'm gonna have to go up
Definitely.
to Lake Arrowhead.
Oh, yes.
Well,
definitely.
You know, I'm going to give you
Definitely. I
my
can't
card
wait to
before I
go.
leave, and so if you have an issue, you know, I can't say I'll send an Uber down to get you, but I can certainly
Yeah,
you know,
Ubers
help
don't
you.
come down the hill like that. Yeah.
Stay up
Well,
there.
everyone, thank you so much for
you so
joining
much.
us
Yes.
today.
Thank
You know, the Blue Jay Festival is around the corner.
you. Yes.
There will be information on our program today about how you can get there. And remember, jazz has a beautiful history,
Yes.
a history we need to be proud of.
Yes.
All the people, people of color and people of all color.
America.
Yes.
It's American history.
America.
Jazz is America.
It is.
Yes, jazz is America.
Yeah.
So until next time, I'm Merlinda Patterson
Kimberly Anthony.
Anitra Applewhite.
and our special guest,
Chris Levister.
the beautiful, wonderful Chris.
Yes.
So until next time, you take care and come on back.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.